Good morning. May peace be in your hearts. Through the energy of freedom and the warmth of love, may you live the fullness of being alive. And in that fullness, find peace. Through justice and understanding, may humanity be at peace. And may all of life on earth live together in balance and peace. Let us sing together a hymn that invites spiritual support, Spirit of Life, number 123 in your hymnals. Let us read together the affirmation of the order of service. Love is a doctrine of this church. The question of the truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. And a congregation like this has things happening, and so with Donald's help, anyone who wants to make an announcement, feel free.
Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here. I missed you all last week. I took little stills with some friends. That's nice. So I wanted to say welcome and thank you so much for making the trip down to be with us today in this worship. And to let everyone know that next week, Alex Klimberger will be with us. We have met her just once 2 years ago. We liked her a lot, and she's been very busy, so she has agreed to be able to join us again.
We have heat after all. The basket is for warm clothes for homeless people that we're collecting. There's a potluck luncheon today. If you didn't bring anything, join us anyway if you feel like it. And if you don't feel like staying for lunch, that's all right. We won't be offended. We're sort of invited. And I finally connected with David Renke's family and have heard from his brother Jim, who says that the family definitely wants to have a memorial service for David here at the Unitarian Church in Fall River after the holidays. After the holidays.
I just got one thing. I'll just yell from here. In case you're questioning my musical choices today, that first one was the theme from the PBS Mystery Series. That's we're having a mystery today. And there will be one horse song, one dog song, and one children song.
So we had the SOPA training yesterday for the United Interfaith Action, which we've been part of. SOPA stands for the School of Prophetic Action. And we use a lot of principles from ancient scriptures, I guess, and ancient scribes that describe how they would organize themselves in ancient times in order to effect change in their communities. And primarily, we try to use spiritual principles in our organizing efforts. So our social justice efforts have a moral base to them, as opposed to just strictly financial or monetary motivations. So I thought I'd let you guys know that. We're all, everyone's welcome to participate at any level that you want to. And our next meeting is going to be the week after Thanksgiving, I believe the 30th of November, which is a Thursday. There we're going to organize our action groups. And we have 3 groups of major attention that we're going to focus on for the upcoming cycle that we engage in. One is education. So we want to make sure we get that money that we were promised 5 years ago, that COVID kind of disrupted. The other one is housing, and we can all know what the housing issues are. So we want to make sure that gets back on track. And finally, it was medical, that's not what they used to, healthcare. So it was a broader healthcare kind of thing. Before that, it was primarily focused on addiction. But we've actually, polished off half the addictive community since COVID. A lot of them have passed away and died, which is probably what was actually part of the plan. I am a conspiracy theorist, but it's really, really unfortunate. But anyway, so it's healthcare in general, making sure that our populations are actually covered and have the required necessary medical care for themselves, especially our immigrant and homeless populations who are usually left out of that equation. Anyone else?
Thank you, Nancy. Well, it's good to be with you all this morning. It's great to get news about the heat in the building, Eric. I want to welcome anyone who might be visiting here for the first time. I think it takes a little courage to enter the doors of an unfamiliar congregation, and so I extend my welcome and applaud your courage. And if I were to introduce this congregation to anyone who might be visiting, I would say that, like other Unitarian Universalist congregations, this is a support community for people on various journeys towards ultimate goals, such as love, or peace, or union. And one of the ways we support each other is by valuing together openness. We're a denomination that has no creed, which implies that we are open to new ideas, new revelation, or that we don't have to have all the answers all the time, and that we can instead entertain a good question. And indeed, when I'm wrestling with a question, I'm more open to experiencing the intricacies of being alive, because in that experience, there can be answers. And as I do so, I am journeying. And conversely, when I believe I have all the answers, I would close myself off to experiences that would contradict that and shut down the journey. It's difficult to maintain openness in isolation, so I appreciate a congregational community like this that with its openness supports my openness and supports my journey. And that's what today's service is about. It's about a community coming together with an attitude of openness to explore. The sermon I'll offer is a story, and I should tell you that all of the stories I tell in my sermons are true. They may not adhere scrupulously to actual facts or events, though, so just be wise. Nevertheless, I offer the service out of my caring for you and my desire to support you on your journeys. I hope that as you journey, you find love and freedom and live the full richness of being alive. My reading this morning is from Walden by Henry David Thoreau. It's an enigmatic passage. I read it and go, what is he talking about? He refers to images in this passage nowhere else in the entire book of Walden. It's baffling and confusing, and so I hope this sermon tries to address what this reading is about. He writes, I long ago lost a hound, a bay horse, and a turtle dove, and am still on their trail. Many of the travelers have spoken concerning them, describing their tracks and what calls they answered to. I have met one or two who have heard the hound and the tramp of the horse, and even seen the dove disappear behind a cloud, and they seemed as anxious to recover them as if they had lost them themselves. Let's take a moment for silence. As you pause in silence, you might notice your thoughts. Any thought is acceptable. You might notice your feelings. Any feeling is understandable. You are accepted. You are loved by this community, by universal spiritual sources. Amen. And so for another hymn that reflects the journey, I'd like to sing together, Sing Out Praises for the Journey, number 295. This is a sermon about ministry and the decision to enter the ministry, and I'm glad to offer it to you because I think anyone sharing in a congregational community shares in the ministry of that congregation, making you ministers. And since you are then ministers, you can understand that of which I speak. Not everyone understands. Indeed, people from my former profession say, ministry? What's up with that? And how did you, of all people, decide to become a minister? They were probably thinking of my cynicism or my sinfulness, or both, probably both. Anyway, I say, well, ministry is about caring for people and supporting spiritual communities, which I realized I wanted to do. And that's true, but the real truth is more mysterious than that. It all began one autumn afternoon many years ago, back when I was a private detective. It had been another boring day at the office. I had my feet on my desk and was wondering whether 1 o'clock was too early to take a nip of Scotch whiskey when she walked in. She was someone. People would know it when she was approaching, think of little else when she was there, and remember it when she had gone. With green eyes looking deep and liquid into mine, she said, "Mr. Reeves, I need your help." Her voice went down easy like a velvety wine of exquisite vintage. "My husband," she continued, "the millionaire financier J. Pierpont Farquharson III, is missing. Here is his picture. If he is gone from my life, I do not know what I will do." Her eyes embraced mine and did not let go. Was I guessing, or did she think I might have some role to play in what she might do with the rest of her life? I ventured, "Maybe you don't need him around anymore." "Maybe I don't," she returned, "but I do need someone strong who can protect me." "Maybe I can find just such a person," I offered. "Maybe you won't have to strain yourself looking." Well, with all this flattering talk, I started fantasizing about life with Mrs. Farquharson. Gazed out the window, saw an old duffer buying carrots at a market across the street, and before I could stop myself, blurted, "Is that him?" "It is," she moped. "Darn. Well, here's $50. Thanks a lot." And she left my office and my life. And I decided, yes, I would begin working on that bottle in the desk. It was cheap and burned the tonsils, but soon I was swimming when a man walked in smelling of pine. He said, "I long ago lost a hound, a bay horse, and a turtle dove, and I'm still on their trail." Many other travelers have spoken concerning them, describing their tracks and what calls they answered to. I have met one or two who have heard the hound and the tramp of the horse, and even seen the dove disappear behind a cloud, and they seemed as anxious to recover them as if they had lost them themselves. I said, "You talk funny. What's your name?" "Thoreau," he said, and took off his hat. His clothes were rough and worn, but he seemed proud of his station in life. I said, "I'm good at finding people, too good. Never done the missing animal racket before." I glanced out the window, hoping to get lucky, but no. "Where were they last seen?" I asked. "Around the Concord, Massachusetts area," he said. "Really?" I was going to go around hollering, "Here, here, doggy," through some New England burg. "This will cost you," I said, $20 a day plus expenses. Thoreau pulled out a piece of paper. "I have a surplus in my bean crop I could give you, and I can do some carpentry or day labor for you, but I can't pay anything. It has already cost me $28, 12 and a half cents to build my house at the pond, and another $33.87 3/4 for my farming, food, clothing, and incidentals for this year. Although I earned $36.78 selling my beans and doing day labor, but I have spent the $25.21 3/4 I had saved, so I don't have any money to offer you." I asked, "What's so important about a hound, a horse, and a dove?" "They are a dream," he said. "And if one advances confidently in the direction of a dream and endeavors to live the life which one has imagined, one will meet with success, unexpected in common hours." I stared at him, thinking of how my dreams of life with Mrs. Farquharson had gone flat. I don't know why. Maybe I feared that too many disappointments and not enough dreams could harden me into granite. Or maybe this Thoreau had a gleam in his eye I could learn something from. Whatever the reason, I agreed. "Okay, I'm in." I stowed the bottle in my desk, pulled on my coat, and the two of us caught the next train on the old Fitchburg Railway out to Concord. When we arrived, Thoreau said that his friend Ralph Waldo Emerson would have a room for me, and that I'd find him at Wright's Tavern or out on the Common. And with that, he strode off along a faint path into the woods. And as I watched him, I observed a spring in his step and a rhythm all his own, like he was marching to the beat of a different drummer. At the tavern, I asked for a scotch and said to the bartender, "I'm looking for a friend of Thoreau's, Ralph Waldo Emerson. You know him?" "Everyone knows Waldo," he said. "I'd like to meet him." "Well, he's around someplace. You can't miss him. Funny hat, glasses." I scanned the patrons of the establishment, people drunk, sleeping, brawling, being thrown out a window, people flirting, kissing, dancing, playing music, sliding down banisters. And this at his mayhem, no one stood out. Finally, I yelled, "Where's Waldo?" Someone pointed to a tall figure outside striding across the village green. I went up to the man and asked, "How you doing?" He said, "Crossing a bare common at twilight under a clouded sky, without having in my thoughts any occurrence of special good fortune, I have enjoyed perfect exhilaration. I am glad to the brink of fear. Standing on the bare ground, my head bathed by the blithe air and uplifted into infinite space, all mean egotism vanishes. I become a transparent eyeball. All mean I am nothing. I see all the currents of universal being circulate through me. I am part or parcel of God." I frowned and beat both my brain cells together about this testimony and couldn't make anything out of it, so I shifted to my business. I said, Thoreau hired me to help locate a certain hound, bay horse, and turtle dove. My name's Reeves, Ken Reeves, Private Eye. He took me to a comfortable manse in the village, and we sat by the fire. I asked, do you know anything of the whereabouts of these animals? I know they're out there, he mused. But where should I start looking? I can't tell you. Truly speaking, it is not instruction but provocation I can give another soul, he said. Trust yourself. Avoid the well-worn path. Refuse the good models, even those held sacred in the imagination of society. Obey thyself. I said. And so the next morning I began tramping through the woods. I wear out my shoe leather on pavement, so this wilderness was new to me. I thought, where would a dog, a horse, and a bird be? Had they been taken by someone? There was no ransom note. Were they just wandering confused in the forest? If so, my wandering confused might find them only to join the ranks of the lost. Were they hiding intentionally, finding some perverse pleasure in baffling these doughty conquered types? If so, they could be watching me now in stifling giggles. After a day of wandering, I found no animals, except I saw some little gray birds flitting through the trees and watched some ducks or something swimming and diving in a lake. I found a tiny cabin, sat and rested. The autumn air was cooling. Up walked Thoreau. Good day, Mr. Reeves. Would you like to join me for dinner? I make a bread of rye and Indian cornmeal. He baked them over a fire, and the loaves were surprisingly good. We discussed the search. He had been looking too, so at Emerson, no results. I said, okay, Thoreau, spill the beans. Oh, yes, he said, I forgot. Let's have some of my beans. When I began gardening, I was determined to know beans, and I have. What I mean, I said, is you've been hiding some of the facts. First off, why are you living here in this cabin? I went to the woods, he said, because I wish to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not when I came to die, discover I had not lived. I did not wish to live what was not life. Living is so dear. I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life, to live so sturdily and Spartan-like as to put to rout all that was not life, to cut a broad swath and shave close, to drive life into a corner and reduce it to its lowest terms. I thought with all his wacko ideas, he ought to write a book. But the man had a purpose, and there was that gleam in his eye. My mug, no gleam. I continued to question Thoreau. Where do the animals fit in? Have they been kidnapped? Are you being extorted? Or are they just dumb animals who wandered off with the wrong crowd? He kept shaking his head. Okay, Thoreau, is there any reason these animals might want to avoid you? At this point, other clients would have broken out crying or pulled out a .45. Thoreau just gazed at the pond like it had the answers. I thought, it's a nice pond, but something's missing. And not just a dog, a horse, and a bird. Grown men out alone in the woods. And sure, the woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but something does not add up. Days continued with searching. I might see Thoreau at his house, Emerson at his. Never bumped into them in the woods. Weeks went by, the leaves dropping, trees now bare, air turning cold, no sign of the animals. I stayed with Emerson at nights. Sometimes he had a group over, called themselves transcendentalists. would hang around. You never know where a clue is going to turn up. But what a crew. Margaret Fuller, Orestes Bronson, Bronson Alcott, talking about philosophers, Kant and Locke, and of Goethe. They kept trying to figure out ways to improve society. Emerson saw improvement happening when people are aware of the infinite relations in nature and of their belonging to these relationships, giving them a sentiment of moral virtue. They asked me what I thought would improve society. I said, my society would be improved by the addition of one green-eyed Mrs. Farquharson III, thank you very much. And after that, they left me alone. But I kept thinking about infinite relations, and not just with Mrs. Farquharson. Emerson might have an idea there. The next evening in Thoreau's cabin, after a cloudy, frustrating day, I said, Henry, how about if the two of us search together? He looked alarmed. His eyes darted around the room like those of a perjuring witness finally squirming. He said, I know of but one or two with whom I can afford to walk. I find it wholesome to be alone the greater part of the time. On the other hand, I love society as much as most, and I'm ready to fasten myself like a bloodsucker to any full-blooded man that comes my way. Yes, tomorrow, let's look together. Imagine my delight at having a bloodsucker fastened on. But this was a tough case and required more infinite relations than currently existed. It snowed that night. The next morning we set out, taking no particular course, still eschewing the well-worn path. Thoreau, an optimist, said that the snow would make tracking easier. It was light and powdery, cleaner than city snow, clinging to branches and pine needles. Thoreau identified the chickadees for me. A few came down and pecked at his clothes. So seedy, I suspect the birds found nourishment. But by afternoon, we were cold and discouraged when Thoreau spotted a track in the snow. We peered at this single horse print, one print, alone in the snow. How? I asked. He shrugged with a dreamy smile as if to say, I realize this does not make sense, but in a way it does. I leaned over for a close look and sniffed for a trace of the cold iron of the shoe. We walked in widening circles around the track, but that was it, one track. The idea that they knew we were looking and were toying with us grew in my mind, but I detected no motive for malice. Were they playing a practical joke? That night I told the transcendentalists what had happened. I suggested we all pair off and look. I said it would improve society. The next day, Margaret Fuller and Emerson found a single dog print, and Bronson felt a little dust of snow fall on them from a hemlock tree and saw a bird flying away. Thoreau joined us that evening, everyone excitedly comparing notes. I almost allowed myself a little enthusiasm. Emerson was saying, together we are, when a dog howled. Everyone hushed. It howled again, the bay of a hound. We rushed out into the night. The moon was big. We strained our eyes. It howled again. Some wanted to go look now. Others wanted to wait till morning. They began to debate. You know, a bunch of philosophers and individualists, everyone thinking independently. How could they agree? They turned to me. What do you advise? I advise we discuss it inside, I said. I'm colder than a Chicago corpse. We went in and the debate raged on. Motion, amendment to the amendment, friendly amendment, motion to table, point of order, call the question. We discussed it all night. By dawn, it was a moot point. But the next day, we combed through the woods, calling to each other. We found more tracks, 5 hoof prints in a row, and from across the pond heard a whinny, and some dog tracks, and more dusting of snow. And that night, spirits were high, and I suggested we include the rest of the town. Thoreau said, I told him, Thoreau said that other people were anxious to help find them. Let's test his theory. And if they do help look, the more detectives, the better. With this suggestion, people's eyes danced around like Thoreau's when I had suggested the two of us search together. One said, but they're different from us. Another said, we won't have the same intimacy. A third asked, what will it cost? They seemed afraid, so I backed off. But after more days of searching together and coming up with nothing, welcoming the rest of Concord sounded better. We pooled some money, went to the tavern, and announced a round of drinks on the transcendentalists. Plying the townfolk with liquor was my idea. I stood on a chair and described the search for the hound, bay horse, and turtle dove that Thoreau had lost. I said, we have found clues, but the animals seem to be eluding us. We want to invite you to join the search. An old man spoke up. I've seen tracks, heard the hound and the tramp of the horse, even seen the dove disappear behind a cloud, but no one's ever asked me to join them and help look. We're asking now, I said. His face brightened up. Okay, I'm in. And Thoreau was right. People did want to look. Someone else chimed in. We need a name to call ourselves. They started offering names. The skeptics and searchers, the free Thoreaus, the Walden Ponders. And in the midst of it all, I just called out, we are a team. Let's be the team. Give me a T for Thoreau, T. Give me an E for Emerson, E. Give me an A for Alcott, A. Give me an M for many people, all of us here. I don't understand what happened next. But as everyone was cheering M, the door burst open and a bay horse trotted up to Thoreau and nudged him with his nose. A hound ran in behind him, wagging his tail and jumping up on everyone. And a bird flew in and flitted around the room. And then a second flew in and someone yelled, 2 turtle doves. As horse and dog and doves greeted everyone, I knew that something had happened, but I didn't know what, and was standing there uncharacteristically dumbfounded when I saw the horse gaze at me with a knowing eye and wink. Emerson invited me to stay on through Christmas. Everyone was so joyful, I agreed. I admit, joy was infectious. The team celebrated in the tavern and sang carols. Emerson looked at the gathering and said, behold, such infinite relations, such a oneness. And I've learned something, that oneness is not just in nature. People can create a oneness. And for once, I understood him. When we worked together, the animals appeared. But solving one mystery raised others. Like, what had really happened? Was there something magical about our infinite relatedness, about forming a team that worked in this case? How did the animals know to appear the moment we formed a team? Where had they been hiding? And where had that second dove come from? I suspected avian hanky-panky, and that something new would be hatching come spring. Finally, as I walked to take the Fitchburg Railway home, people were cheering, give me a T. Horse and dog were running and doves flying, and I dreaded my dreary office. And so, as you know, I went off to study for the ministry. Being ministers yourselves, maybe you can understand why. But how do I explain it to the cops and crooks and dames of my former profession? That life on a team, on the trail of an elusive dream, is more wondrous and mysterious than I had guessed, and that I wanted to join just such a team, embarked on just such a trail. One way we are a team is by pooling together our resources to create the heat, building that we depend on here at this church. So let's take the offertory. Thank you. On this time we have with each other as a congregation, I invite those who wish to share a joy or a concern, something we can celebrate together, or something for which you would like the healing energy of our shared meditation. I understand that David Ranke has died since my last visit. I remember him sitting right over here. Sorry to hear about that.
Anyone want I have a joy. My biggest joy, of course, is meeting Dr. Reeves, being his friend. He was my friend. He was my reverend, my therapist, my buddy, my pal. He taught me a lot. He gave me hope. He kept telling me over and over again, don't give up. It's not over. I was homeless at the time. And he knew that I needed just an inch to help, to get, on the right track. And he guided me on that right track. He gave me a lot of encouragement about me, who I am in my life. He taught me about the Unitarian Church. He gave me something to think about every day. He was a very, very special man to a lot of people around this country and around this world. He's helped out many people and never collected a penny. And when he did, he was always trying to give it back. His love will always be in my heart and in others. And today's joy is knowing that he'll be there in my heart forever. Thank you.
Deborah Torres wasn't answering her phone or her text messages this morning, so Kit wasn't able to pick her up. And she's had spent some time in the hospital in the last few days, so I'm worried about her. I guess I recommend thinking of her or praying for her.
I just want to there, and I feel as though it's like been a couple months for us.
And if anyone was wondering, Kathy is with her family in New York. She's having a tough time getting through it, and her son Sean, who I speak to all the time, is staying at their apartment. But unfortunately, he has to leave soon due to that. But she is hopefully going to be together with her family so that she can get that support. I know it's far away, but you know, her address and stuff is up here. If you have a card or anything you want to do, you can send it there, and information will get to Kathy. So it's right here on a white piece of paper. And her heart, I mean, what a woman to be with someone like Dave. I mean, she was a great person every which way. And, the holidays will be tough, but we'll get through it. As David always said, it's all in here in your heart.
Well, we are mysteriously connected with each other. Draw support and love and care from each other in these connections. We're grateful for them. And a hymn that reflects the union of a community, number 318 in your hymnals, We Would Be One. Let us sing together. I want to thank all who helped participate in today's service, Nancy and Donald, and behind the scenes, Kim and Eric, and all of you. You're all in this together. Can't do this without everybody. I'm glad we can be together this morning. We draw strength and support from our community. And with that strength and support, may we go in peace. Thank